So this is going to be the start of what I'm hoping to be a new series of videos I'm going to put on the channel regarding videos about various games that I like, that I'll just be playing them and rambling, and it'll just be unedited, unscripted, just me talking about it, because I've seen that especially nowadays, people just like to have something in the background and listen to, and maybe learn something new about someone's opinions on games or films or what have you. So in this case, I'm going to be doing games, um, and I want to call this that game feel. That's what I want to call this series. So I would just talk about the game's history, its effect on me, my story with it personally, and then just talk about how the game feels and its impact and everything. Um, but yeah, so we're gonna start off with uh, the easiest game I could talk about, because it's a game that is so near and dear to my heart that I could talk about it all day, every day, and that is Doom, the original. So I'll just be talking about it as we play. So with Doom, I know, unfortunately, way too much about this game. I know a whole lot about its history, about its development, about its influence and impact, and I know way too much about the intricate details of the game that it's ad nauseum with how much I know. And that's not bragging or anything like that. That's just a literal obsession that I gained over the years as soon as I learned about it and wanted to know more. And it just grew into this crazy obsession of just everything regarding Doom. And then that grew into my obsession of id Software games and 90s PC games in general. And it's just continued to sprout ever since. But Doom was really the start of it all for me in terms of a deep love for these type of games. So, to give a bit of a background, I grew up starting out playing games on an old PC of my dad's, and we only had a couple games on it because it was mainly used for work. Um, some of them were very much for a 5, 6 year old like me to play. If I remember, the one that really stuck with me was Batty Bear's Birthday Adventure, I think it's called. It was like a point and click game made in like the DOS era. Uh, about a bear, like a stuffed bear coming to life and like preparing a birthday surprise for their owner or something like that. Very weird, funny game, but yeah, that was one of my firsts. I'm still in hot contention on whether or not that or Tomb Raider 4 were my first games I ever played. I believe it was Tomb Raider 4 I played before the Fatty Bear game. And with Tomb Raider 4, that was obviously a lot more of a mature game and more advanced for my little brain to handle. But I liked it all the same, and I would play with my sister. She would mainly play it, and I would watch her, but I played it sometimes. And we could only get through the intro sequence, the tutorial, essentially, where you're in the temple and just going through the obstacles and everything like that, and you find an artifact, and your dad like gets trapped. Um, the actual game takes place in like Egypt, if I remember, and you're supposed to be going through like pyramids and fight mummies and stuff like that. But we couldn't get past the first level. We just couldn't figure it out. So we would just play the intro sequence, the tutorial, over and over again. And then we had some other more simpler games. We played a lot of like Flash games and stuff like that. But that was like pretty much the extent of our PC gaming knowledge. And then my sister got a DS. She started playing that DS a bunch with my cousins whenever we would go visit their house. And it being a DS, one of the first games that she ever got to play was New Super Mario Brothers, and that game was also very influential for me. I played it alongside her, and even though I was horrible at it, I did my best. I certainly did my best to try to get through it as best I could. And later in life, I did like ended up actually beating it, but like when I was a kid, I was just more so fascinated to just play a game like that. That was so fun and colorful. And eventually, I got a DS. I started playing the same games that she played. New Super Mario Brothers, Kirby Super Ultra Star, if I recall that was being called. That was also a big one. And then after that, I had gotten an Xbox 360 as my first ever proper console. And that was bundled with Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2, and Mass Effect 2. And I played Modern Warfare 2 to death. And that was the beginning of my slippery slope down into the world of mature games. And I played that at 9 years old, and that was... my god, that was influential to say the least. But on the topic of Doom, I didn't actually play Doom until I was in middle school. I'd heard about it here and there when people were talking about games and stuff on YouTube and stuff like that. They would always mention something called Doom, but I didn't know what it was. I figured it was a video game. But at the time of me growing up, Doom was not exactly relevant in terms of like 2006 onward, because around that time there was like a huge empty space, I guess, for Doom's line of games. Doom 3 would have been the latest game that would have come out, and that would have been 2 years prior, in 2004. But yeah, I got my hands on playing Doom actually through emulation on my phone, because I was fascinated with the idea of emulating games on your phone, because that was a novel concept to me. So I got a GBA emulator where I was playing a bunch of GBA games, and I would play Pokemon and Mario and Metroid on that. But then I also, on the emulation side, I found out about Doom. Like, it was just on the list of games that I could download. So I downloaded it. I was curious. I was like, why not? Let's try it. And surprisingly enough, for a low-powered system as the Game Boy Advance was, it handled a Doom port pretty well. At least looking at it now. Back then, I thought, like, that was the full PC game I was playing right there, just on my phone. And I liked it. I loved it. I loved how it was. I thought it was very fun, especially to play, like, on the go. Even though I had played more advanced modern games like Call of Duty, there was something about Doom, a charm, that was just so encapsulating. It was kind of the same feeling I had gotten when I played Mario and Kirby for the first time, just something so iconic and colorful and, just like, this is the look of this game is a staple. Like, you can't distinct this from anything else. It is just what that game is in its soul. It can't be, like, compared to anything. Like, Mario has a distinct style, and Kirby had a distinct style. Doom has a distinct style as well. And I can look at any little texture, any little sprite work from this game, and in some other third source, and I can immediately tell, oh, this is from Doom. Or at the very least, it's in the vein of Doom. So yeah, I started out playing Doom on the GBA. I played just the first game on that. It's similar enough to the PC port, but now after playing the actual full game, I can see the differences. First of all, there was no blood. It was green blood that came out of the demons, because Nintendo back then was very harsh with violent games and mature stuff on their system. So yeah, no red blood. The music was certainly an attempt to try to make it sound similar to the PC game. It was, you know, what you could do on such a small handheld. And I believe it's a offset port of the Atari Jaguar version. And if you don't know what the Atari Jaguar is, then yeah, that just proves my fact that I'm way too, well, I'm not old, but my knowledge of things is certainly ancient in terms of where I put my fascinations in. But yeah, the Atari Jaguar was like a console back in the 90s, mid-90s, and they based it, a lot of the other console ports based themselves around the Atari Jaguar port, because it was, I believe, the first console port of the game. And so the levels are very simplified. They don't have as much detail as the PC game here does. And so even then, it was still fun. It didn't change the fact that it was still fun. And then after that, I had gotten my hands... I had gotten 2 Xboxes in my span of, like, middle school and stuff like that. The first one was given to me as a birthday gift, and then we got our house broken into. I lost that Xbox. I was gifted another Xbox 360 for I think it was the year after for my birthday. And a couple years after that, we sold it. No, I didn't sell it. I gave it away to someone. It was someone's kid I had given it to because they were moving away to a different country, and they didn't have any like games or things to take with them to entertain themselves. So I was like, yeah, I'm not really playing this anymore. Here, you can have it. So I just gave it to them and all the games. And then after that, I had gotten a PlayStation 3. And when I had gotten the PlayStation 3, I had gotten my hands on Doom 3, the BFG edition specifically. And it was a version of the game that came with both Doom 1, Doom 2, and Doom 3. And it was like a slightly enhanced version of Doom 3. And if I remember correctly, it was because it was for its 20th anniversary. Something along the lines of that. It came out like 2013. And it was a good compilation for the time. It certainly is nothing crazy special now with the modern ports, but it was the first time I had gotten to play the full version of the game. And so I played it. I, of course, loved it. I played Doom 1, 2, and 3. And it was my first time playing Doom 2 and 3. And I even like Doom 3 as very mixed as that game is received. I thought it was a pretty good action horror shooter. For what it is, it's good. But as a Doom game, yeah, it definitely doesn't hold up to the other ones. So yeah, I would play the ever-loving crap out of Doom 1, 2, and 3. And I played Doom 3 a bit, but like a few times, mainly to just get achievements and stuff like that after I played it the initial time. But I was just obsessed with playing Doom 1 and 2. I just couldn't stop playing it. I couldn't stop replaying the levels. It was just something about it that just captured me. Freaking made me love it. So much more than any other game. And at this time, like, you know, modern games were out that were way more impressive and more, like, feature-filled, such as, Call of Duty Black Ops 2. I believe Grand Theft Auto 5 had already come out at this point. And even another game not made by id Software, but of id Software's properties, Wolfenstein The New Order had come out, and that was like a super advanced shooter at the time. But I still couldn't stop playing this old game. It was just fascinating to me. And it got to the point where I wanted to learn about this game because this game was hooking on me so hard. I needed to learn it. Like, what is this game's story? Does anybody else feel the same way I do? And so I would go online and I would start researching about it, look at videos and articles and everything like that, and I would find out, wow, this game was like not only well liked and influential, but it was pretty much the start of the FPS. It was the father, essentially. The grandfather goes to Wolfenstein 3D, but Doom was the father of the FPS. It really started out what we know now as a first-person shooter. And so I would just continue playing it. I would be talking about it in school. I would be drawing about it. I'd be fantasizing about it when I wasn't playing it. Like, no other game besides maybe Sonic and Call of Duty Zombies, like, interested me as much as Doom did. Like, there wasn't much that held a candle to it. And it was when I started researching that I started to find out about the development studio, id Software. And id Software, learning about them was what started my love for not just the games that I played, but the story behind those games, how they're made. It got me interested into software development and programming and all this stuff, learning like the innards of a game. And yeah, just hearing the story and how they went, these like teenagers who were just into like Dungeons and Dragons and heavy metal and all these action movies. They just literally took everything that they liked that was influential to them and they made a game out of it. And it was just nothing but passion and a dream and just an idea that came to life in the best way possible. And it's influenced me as an artist and as a creator of anything to just be like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to... This is the kind of creator I want to be, have the kind of imagination and passion that they had when they made their games. And so, id Software and Doom are incredibly influential parts of my life. And I can never see myself any other way without them and without these games being a part of who I am as a person. Because nothing ever since has been able to capture my attention and my love for an art form quite like this. And yeah, continuing on with the story of my personal experience with Doom. By the time I had gotten the BFG edition, I was playing all the 3 games. Doom 2016 was going to be announced, or I believe it already was announced, and I had read about it in Game Informer magazines and stuff like that, and I saw the pictures and everything, and I was just like, oh my gosh, they're making a new one, and it looks incredible. So I was so excited. But the only problem was that it was on the newer consoles, or at least the newer consoles at the time. And I didn't have enough money to afford any of those consoles or a good enough PC to run that new game. So I just kind of lingered for a while, still playing the old games on my PS3 until I got enough money to scrounge together to get a PS4. And once I got my PlayStation 4, I would get Doom 2016. It was like 2 years too late, but it was still as fun and amazing as if it were a brand new game. I had played it. I loved it. I was obsessed with it. I'd play it, the campaign, over and over and over again. Like, nothing ever felt as good as 2016 did in terms of like smooth, like buttery smooth gameplay, and like the performance was flawless and everything like that. I don't think I ever had a technical issue with that game ever. Um, and it was a testament to how amazing that id Software made their games. The old studio and the new studio, they cared about how the game ran as much as how good it played, and that stands so good today, because even with their newest game, The Dark Ages, not a single real performance issue that was, noticeable with that game. It ran amazing, and my PC is not that good to today's standards. It's okay by today's standards, but even on something like mine, I could run it at medium settings pretty well with a smooth 60 frames. But yeah, after Doom 2016, at that point, I was like certified as a Doom fanboy, and I would babble about the game all day, every day, and it would go to the point where I would introduce my friends to the game, to the old game, to get them started on the Doom craze, and I got some of them into it. Some of them, like, who were so used to playing games like Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto and Battlefield, they had played these old games from the 90s, and they were like, oh my god, this is fun. Because a game doesn't have to be graphically impressive or have like a million features or have online multiplayer to be successful and fun, most of all. It could just be a simple game like this with simple controls, a simple idea, and it could still just be incredibly fun. And that's what I took away from it. But this game is so fun, and I didn't want to put it down. I didn't want to stop talking about it, ever. And so, going on from 2016, I was just into the research of it, wanting to know everything about the game's development, from the first one to the newest one. And then it got me into learning about id Software's other games, like Wolfenstein and Quake, and I wanted to play those games too. So eventually, I got a computer. I got my own personal computer for once. It wasn't powerful. In fact, it was kind of underpowered. But it could handle these 90s games, so I got Wolfenstein working, I got Quake working, and I started to play those games. I learned about source ports. I learned how to play Doom, Quake, and Wolfenstein, well, mainly just Doom and Quake, on these advanced source ports that were made in the modern day that would make the game run at better resolutions and have all these customizable features, and most of all, allow for modding. And as soon as I got my personal computer, I was hardcore into Doom mods and custom WADs and stuff like that, and even making my own. I would get Doom Builder not long after, and I would start making my own maps, and that is also what helped me get into game design and wanting to learn about creating games, was with Doom Builder. And I learned how to import textures and mess around with sprite making, custom music, and all that stuff. I learned about MIDIs, and it just kept growing from there to the point where, like, I just didn't want to stop playing. All these new games that were coming out, all these new, trends and everything that my friends were into, I would join in. I would, it would pique my interest a little bit, and then I would just revert back to this. I would just go right back to these old games where I felt good and safe and just purely happy playing all the time. And I never stopped. It's still this way to this very day. I play Doom and Quake and these, games from this era at least once or twice every few months. Just again and again, the same levels. Or if I'm feeling like it, I'll download some custom mods. I used to, be heavy into the mod scene. Now I'm not too much anymore. But I still try stuff out here and there. because there's just stuff that is like really interesting or really impressive where I'm just like, okay, I gotta try this and see how it is. So yeah, and then the story from there really just blew up. When Doom Eternal was being revealed, I was in it hardcore. Again. That's all I would ever talk about was just when is Doom Eternal coming out? What is Doom Eternal going to have? What it's going to be about? What kind of game is it going to be? Like, how is it going to improve on the first one that came before? And yeah, that just continued until I played the game for the first time, and I was blown away. That Doom Eternal was like a eye-opening experience. Like, Doom 2016 was great fun, but Doom Eternal just took 2016 to like 50 levels up in terms of the action, the story, the music. I couldn't handle it. It was just so good. And from there on, like, I didn't shut up about Doom until, like, really until I just talked about the game until I couldn't talk about it anymore, until I ran out of topic to talk about, until I ran out of friends to annoy about it. I just kept babbling on about this game and this franchise. And when I was done talking about Doom, I would talk about Quake. And when I was done talking about Quake, I would talk about Half-Life and all these other games that I was obsessed of that came decades before. That came a decade before I was even born. That shouldn't even be in my scope of searching. And so we come to the present day where Dark Ages had come out last year, and I was obsessed with playing it, but not as much as Eternal or 2016. And I believe this was a revelation to me that I was getting essentially doomed out and a bit fatigued, was when Dark Ages was revealed, and I was like, oh yeah, they're making another Doom, cool. And it wasn't like, holy shit, yes, another Doom, like it was with Eternal or 2016. And that's mainly for two reasons. The first reason was just, again, I think I was starting to feel a little bit fatigued, and I was just kind of having enough about Doom. Doom Eternal had already given me so much. I was like, oh, what could they possibly do for the next game? And with Dark Ages, it was also the fact that they had made 2 full experience Doom games, plus expansion DLC, and all these collections of like all the games. They had rebuilt the original games to be played on modern systems and everything like that. And I was just like, this is good. This is great. The more people that can play these games, the better. But I was also thinking about the other game that they were very much neglecting when they were so obsessed with Doom, and that was Quake. Now with Quake, that's a whole different story for another video when I will eventually talk about the feel of Quake, or that Quake feel, however you want to call it. But yeah, with Quake, it's not as heavy of a love as I have with Doom, but it was certainly a love that came from a different place, and that was mainly because I love Quake for its atmosphere, and I love Quake for its multiplayer. I'm all over the place with Quake, as opposed to Doom. But with, with Quake, I was like, I want them to make a new Quake game, because the series of Quake is in such a weird place right now, where it's had all these games that each of them are in very different universes and different stories, and they're very in quality, as opposed to Doom, which has pretty consistently great ever since it started. But Quake's always been this weird, like, stepbrother of just, like, you were so good in your beginning, and then you kind of faltered in your later years, and then you just kind of disappeared off the face of the earth, and we miss you, pal. Where are you? And so, yeah, at this point, like, I was looking a bunch at Quake, and I was like, man, it would be really awesome if they gave Quake the Doom 2016 reboot treatment and just, like, refreshed the game for a whole new audience and made it, like, modern and fun and just go even crazier with it, because Quake's a lot more of a crazier game stylistically wise. At least the first game is. When I talk about Quake in this sense, I talk about the first game. I like Quake 2 and, to an extent, Quake 4, but I'm not a big fan of the Strogg. I'm not a big fan of the sci-fi Borg aspect they went for. I like Quake as the first game made it, which is a dark fantasy, H.P. Lovecraft, first-person shooter with sci-fi elements. And so I wanted a game like that. I wanted that, but just in a modern setting, you know, with modern technology and all that stuff like that. And when I saw the Dark Ages trailer, all I could think about, instead of, like, pure unbridled excitement, was just, this looks like it could have been a Quake reboot. Because it was dark fantasy, it had H.P. Lovecraft elements, it was a little trippy and stuff like that. And I was just like, yeah, this really, really could have been a Quake reboot. Like, I could just imagine all this, but instead of demons, it's Lovecraftian beasts, and instead of Doom Guy or Doomslayer, it's Ranger. And I'm just like, what is going on here? Like, it just felt weird. I don't know. It felt weird. And so, after I played it, I loved it, of course. It was another slam dunk. It's very different from Eternal, but it was good for what it did different. It was a very good change of pace. Like, I was pleasantly surprised with it, that it was gaining my interest more and more as I played it, and then once I got through the campaign the first time around, I was just like, okay, yeah, this game's cool. This game's really cool. And so, where we are now with Dark Ages, all I can say is that, and, you know, not going too in-depth with Dark Ages, all I can say is that, yeah, we really, really, really do need a Quake reboot now, more than ever. And I hope to God that after Dark Ages they will do that, that they will bring back Quake, we will return to the dark fantasy setting with Lovecraft over the Strogg and the sci-fi. And most of all, we will return to classic arena multiplayer. Because Quake technically did make a comeback around the time Doom 2016 did, with the game Quake Champions. The problem with Quake Champions is that instead of being a revival of the arena shooter, as Quake had so wonderfully defined in its heyday, with Quake 1, Quake 2, and Quake 3 especially, it was not the comeback we were expecting, and instead it really just evolved into chasing trends. Because at this time, hero shooters were the big craze because of Overwatch and other games. I mean, TF2 also existed, but Overwatch was like, that was the hit thing at the time. Everybody wanted to be Overwatch. Everyone wanted a slice of that cake. And so, yeah, they chased that trend real hard, and with adding special champions with their own abilities and stats and speeds and stuff like that. And loot boxes and all this shit. And it just kind of devolved into just them copying that, it being a just Overwatch with a id Software skin over it, which doesn't sound like a bad idea initially, Quake Champions is fun, but it's missing that, like, that simplicity, that wonderful simplicity that it had with Quake 3 and Quake 1 even in the original deathmatch days. Like, you don't need loot boxes and skins and all this stuff. You don't need heroes with special stats and abilities that all differ from each other. Quake's multiplayer was always just simple. Of just, you're on even footing. You start with the same starting weapon. You go and you get your weapons around the map. It's all about, you know, finding the weapons, finding dominant points of the map, and just using your raw skill to beat on people. That was the fun of it. And Quake Champions was kind of lacking that, it felt like, and it died off pretty quick as a result. And so I'm getting very off topic because I'm talking about Quake now when I really should be talking about Doom. It was the same thing with Doom in terms of multiplayer. Doom Deathmatch isn't nearly as iconic as Quake Deathmatch, but it was still influential. It was the beginning of Deathmatch as a whole with Doom. And I miss multiplayer in Doom. We don't have it anymore. They kept shiveling it away every new release. Doom 1 and 2 had classic multiplayer deathmatch and cooperative. Doom 3 had deathmatch. It was very bare bones, but it existed. It was there. Doom 2016 had a multiplayer. It was a more modern multiplayer with, like, you know, modern game modes and all these, and special, like, perks and loadouts especially, and I have a big problem with that. In particular is the fact that classic shooter multiplayers should never have loadouts. It should just be the, you know, start with the same weapon, pick up the more advanced weapons as you go through the map kind of structure. And so, yeah, with that, Eternal came out and it had a multiplayer, but it was not, you know, Marine versus Marine or Slayer versus Slayer, however you want to call it. It was battle mode, which is a, like, kind of shooter slash strategy mode where one person plays as the Slayer and has to do, you know, everything in his power to kill all the demons, kill the player demons especially. And the demons play like a more strategic role where they have to place, you know, hazards and demons around the map to stop the Slayer and use their own abilities to kill him. It was a 2v1 game mode, and it was fun. I liked the idea. But why was that the only mode? Why was that the only multiplayer? Why was there no deathmatch? Why was there no cooperative? The fact that it didn't have cooperative is something I don't think a lot of people talk about. I think Doom works very well for cooperative play as much as it does head-on-head, you know, deathmatch. And so I was just surprised that 2016 or Eternal didn't have the cooperative at all. Because it would have worked so well. It would have been so fun to be able to play with the campaign with other people. Like Halo. Like, I really want it to be like Halo, where you could just play these games with your friends. But it never came to be. And then after Eternal, having that multiplayer, Dark Ages came out, didn't even have a multiplayer. It's just single player and the Riptorium, and that's it. And I was like, wow, they're not even trying at this point. They really are just turning Doom into just a single player campaign, and that's it. And yeah, the campaign was great. It was really good. But this Doom is also well known for multiplayer. Doom works well with multiplayer. it should have a multiplayer. And so I'm just kind of here waiting for something to happen. Waiting for a kind of multiplayer, classic deathmatch multiplayer to come out for either Doom or Quake or any id Software game. I'm waiting for someone to answer the call and give us that. I know it's possible. I know it can happen. And I know it would work out well. I know it'd be really fun. They just gotta try and make it happen. Either way. So I've talked... I believe I've mentioned, like, everything. I mean, I guess this is, like, the perfect time to talk about the topic of the video, which is how the game feels and how this game makes me feel. And I mean, I did describe a little bit of it already, but yeah, to go even further upon it, I love Doom. It makes me feel good. Like, it makes me feel like I'm playing legitimate art passion made by genuine nerds like me, and not some corporate, you know, like, cash grab kind of game as we have nowadays. I'm playing what was someone's idea that they worked hard to put on the screen, and they made it happen. It's like watching like an indie film, or like just a really well-made like masterclass film, and you could feel the artistry in it. I feel that way with Doom. I feel the passion and the creation behind it all, with every pixel. And a big influence of it on me was the style, the visual style of this game. The way that this game looks in terms of, like, the rustic 80s, 90s sci-fi that's very much inspired by, like, films like Terminator and Aliens. I just adore this style, and I never want it to go away. I wish it would, this kind of style of sci-fi would still stick around. The only kind of films and stuff that still have this is the Alien series still pretty much has it. Star Wars has, you know, an old school kind of sci-fi too, that I like. I would really love for there to be a Doom show or Doom film made with the original game style in mind, where it looks like this, but just, you know, obviously not spritey and pixely, but just the old school sci-fi. Am I making sense? I feel like I'm not making too much sense when I'm describing these things. I feel like I need to be better at describing, but just to put it simply, this game is it just looks great to me. It looks like the best kind of style that, like, I vibe with, where everybody has that one thing where they're just like, oh, this game just it's what I feel like. It makes me feel like this in a certain way. Like, some people say that about, like, Dark Souls or Minecraft or Pokemon, just that distinct style that, like, it's like a world that they could see themselves vibing and living in. And for me, that's Doom. I could sit... The only game that comes, like, close to me, like, I could live in this universe comfortably, would probably be Half-Life. In some cases, Half-Life edges it out a little bit more, because I'm more accustomed to Half-Life's, like, setting and world building, because it has actual world building and stuff like that, because it has a story, unopposed to the original Dooms, which don't really have a story. It's a lot more simplistic. So yeah, it is kind of a hot contest between Doom and Half-Life on which universe I would want to live in more. But Doom is a comfortable one I would live in, even though it's a horrible, terrible universe with corporations opening portals into hell and people dying left and right, I still would vibe here. Legitimately. And so, yeah, when it comes to the style, I think what I was especially influenced by was how hell looked like and how the demons look like. The sci-fi stuff is good, like, but hell is what really glued my interest when talking about and thinking about Doom. To give some perspective, I was raised Catholic, and I was always taught about, you know, the simple Catholic values and how heavily to avoid sin, and my mother would talk especially about demons and, you know, that I would go to hell if I did this, and I'd go to hell if I did that, and the more she talked to me about sin and doing wrong and going to hell and stuff like that, it just made me more interested about hell and demons. Because, like, there's... who wants to read about angels and heaven and, like, you know, oh, if you're good, you're gonna go to this nice place in the clouds where everyone who died and knows you is gonna be there, embraces you. Like, that's not cool. I want to be in a place with monsters that want to eat me or something. And when I played Doom for the first time, I don't think I've ever been so, like, religiously awakened by a game. It's really weird to say. It's a hard way to describe it. I wouldn't want to say, like, awakened. It was just, like, I feel like I am in a... man, it's really hard to describe it. I feel like I gained a kind of love for what was so been taught that, you know, I was not supposed to like, which is evil and sin and hell, but not like in the sense that, oh, I'm a Satan worshiper and I love demons and I want to be a demon or something like that, but in the sense of just like hell is just cool. The idea, a concept of hell is just cool. In that, I guess, 90s metalhead edge kind of way. And so I was like, I want to learn more about hell and demons, and this led me into learning about going into demonology and like buying books on stuff like that, and I ended up landing on one of the most influential books of my life that taught me a bunch about demonology, which is Dante's Inferno, of course. Why wouldn't you think anything else? But yeah, Dante's Inferno, huge inspiration for my work and everything I go forward in. I read that epic, and I was immediately drawn back to Doom. And it felt familiar when I was reading that and talking about the demons and hell and stuff like that. It gave me the same feeling about when I played Doom for the first time, went to hell and all that stuff. It was incredibly just like, wow, this is cool. This is epic. This is like, it's a biblical, dangerous, like, thing I can't wrap my head fully around. But it's just fascinating. The only other time that has happened with, like, the idea of God and heaven and hell being, like, really influential in my mind and, like, striking a chord with me to where, like, I borderline feel a shiver down my spine at, like, the might of the religious power and all that stuff, or the religious effect it has on me, is when I watched Raiders of the Lost Ark for the first time, and I saw the final scene with the opening of the Ark, and I was like, ooh, probably 5 when I saw that movie, and yeah, I don't think there's ever been a movie that has physically shook me that much as with that one. That one literally, like, struck the fear of God in me, and I was like, okay, from this point on, I'm gonna be good, and I'm not going to be bad or sinful or anything like that, or else my face is going to melt, and I'm going to catch on fire, and then my head is going to explode. So, yeah, that reading Dante's Inferno and Doom really were like awakenings at me to be like, I want to surround my life around the idea of like biblical gods and religion in the sense of like not so much the boring teachings and lessons, but the epic tales of like gods and demons and stuff like that. The great battles. And you would think I would also that would also mean I would be interested in fantasy and stuff like that, and I am to an extent, but not like how people would think. There's something different that separates like fantasy from like religious fantasy, I guess you want to call it. I mean, it's up to you if you want to. Oh, I missed a secret. Shit. Anyways, it's up to you if you decide what is like the stories of the Bible and all that. Is that fantasy? Is that real to you? I like to be in a like in between position where it's fantastical, but I believe that like the teachings and a lot of like the lessons are like stripped from real life events and people, but it's just like give it a twist to like make it sound more interesting and cool. And when I talk about the Bible, I mainly talk about the Old Testament stuff because the Old Testament is the cool part of the Bible. Well, the really cool, crazy stuff that happens. And New Testament is just boring moral lessons and helping people, and no one cares about that. I want to hear about people eating, like being eaten by lions, or people being like nailed on crosses, all that stuff. Or God like smiting down an entire population with plague. Prince of Egypt style. That's cool to me. And so that's what I thought Doom was deep down. I thought Doom was just this very influential, like, religious experience that it was like I'm on a crusade. My Catholic, like, younger brain was like, this isn't just about, like, a angry guy who wants to kill demons for the sake of it. I'm doing it for the good of mankind and everything. And I still have a belief about that. Like, I think that... I used to actually think when I was little and I would play, like, the old Doom games on my PlayStation, I used to think... I had, like, my own, like, headcanon theory that Doom Guy was an angel. And that he was, like, sent down from heaven in, like, just disguised as a person in a suit of armor to kill demons. And that he was actually doing it for heaven and the good and everything like that. He was saving mankind. Little would I know that later in the Doom series, when the newer games came out, that part of that is actually kind of true. And I'm like, oh shit, okay. Yeah, it was interesting, to say the least. But, yeah. With that, we have the sci-fi, we have the hell feel. We have, in general, just, like, the game's influence and what it's taught me about art. And I can't talk about Doom without talking about my boy, my hero, pretty much, in terms of a creator, an artist, John Romero. This man is the equivalent of, like, my role model. He's everything that I want to be. Just an absolute character of a person. Just, he's chill. He thinks purely about art and design and just creating cool stuff. And he's super into the idea of just, like, he has the idea of art that I love about art, which is just, like, going as intense as possible to make just cool shit visualized. Adrian Carmack, the artist behind Doom, is also a big part of that too. Him and John Romero pretty much, like, worked hand in hand to, like, make the style of Doom possible. But with Romero, his idea of, like, how Doom should be like is just, yeah, it's just so influential to me. I want to be that when I grow up. Or I guess when I'm more grown, it's just the chill guy who like Dungeons and Dragons and demons and hell and all that stuff, but in like a cool, respectable way, not the I'm a Satan worshiper way. As opposed to the programmer John Carmack, who was like the opposite, pretty much. He was like way more about the technology, and he was more about the intricacies of like an engine, and more about like fantasy stuff, because he was way more hard on the D&D stuff than Romero was, at least in terms of fantasy compared to the occult, evil stuff that Romero was. Romero is literally just like, his brain is just a heavy metal album like come to life. That's the best way I could describe it. And like, that's what Doom feels like to me. Doom feels like the fantastical imagery of stuff like heavy metal albums, like heavy metal album art, come to life. And I can't get enough of it. And ever since Doom 2016, the boomer shooter craze has come back. That's what they're called now. That's what these games are called. They're called boomer shooters. Yeah, that was incredibly awesome to see, like, people nowadays in the modern day just make intentionally like 90s looking games, like Dusk. Like, Jesus Christ, Dusk is so good, and I'll probably make a video about that soon as well. I love those kinds of games. And yeah, all that stuff wouldn't have happened if like id Software didn't just decide to bring Doom back in the best way possible. It didn't start out that way. They were originally going to make Doom 4 be way more Call of Duty and like, I guess Call of Duty Gears of War-y kind of like cover-based health regen shooter. And man, if it went that route, that would have been sad. That would have been real sad. But I'm glad that we got the future, or I guess now the past, that we did. And we got Doom 2016 as it is. And growing forth into what the Doom series is now. It makes me incredibly happy to be a part of it. I might not be as influentially well known with it, but I like to see myself in my circle of friends and everything like that as just, hey, he's that Doom guy. He's the guy who knows about the demons and likes demons and hell and these old games, and I'm perfectly happy being that person that is just obsessed with this era of art. And Doom has forever changed my life, not just in terms of personality and how I see, certain forms of creation, but it has changed me in just how it changed my future, really. Like, I went from like wanting to do like art or game design and make like fun stuff, like fun cutesy stuff like Mario, or like action games like that, like Nintendo stuff, because that's the other thing I was into at the time, of course, was Nintendo, because I was still a Nintendo fan from my DS days. But Doom was like, as soon as I got hooked on it, I was just like, okay, this is what I want to do, like exactly this. And that eventually led me to deciding I want to make a story, an entire universe about demons and hell and gods, but put my own twist on it. And in this case, it would be a cartoony, little bit of a goofier twist, but still serious, because I love cartoons and animation as much as I love games. And so I ended up creating my own series, which I haven't talked about on the channel yet, but I want to talk about it in more detail. But essentially, I've made a series that I don't know where it's going yet. I've been in the process of figuring out what I even want to do with it. It's just a big concept of ideas I've made over a decade at this point. But it is heavily based off of Doom and games like it in terms of style and attitude and mood. And right down to just how some of the demons straight up look is like just Doom all the way. And how hell looks. And that's 100% intentional. And I'll elaborate on it more when I make a video eventually talking about it. When I guess I'll make another ramble video about that particular thing I'm working on. But yeah, this is Doom hours. We gotta talk about Doom still. What else could I possibly talk about it? I mean, it is what it is, and all I've been doing now is just learning. I'm continuing to find newer stuff about it and take lessons of it and just attributing it to the work that I put in now in terms of my creations. And frankly, I'm glad that there's always something new about Doom to talk about and to figure out, whether it's what the community is doing. Oh, gosh, the community. I can't talk about Doom without the community. Like, the fans, one of the greatest communities I've ever met and had the pleasure of talking to with various people. I don't talk to the Doom community enough. I really should. But part of me doesn't want to because I'm very intimidated by the people who know way more than I do. And if I were to, like, flex my muscles in terms of knowing shit about Doom, I'd get schooled by some guy actually born in, like, the 90s being like, actually, you're not talking about this right. I'm scared of that. But, yeah, no, like, the Doom community is really great. Really wonderful. Like, the fans are so passionate. And id Software, the new people at id Software, Hugo Martin, incredibly passionate people who were like, love this series to death, and they will keep bringing us the good stuff for years to come. And so, yeah, with the community, I don't even know where I would place myself if I were to, like, make a statement on if I was, like, go to the Doom forums and be like, hey, am I a creator? Am I a artist? Am I just a casual Doom fan? Am I a hardcore Doom fan? What the fuck am I? I don't know. I'm just some guy who's obsessed with this game, who got hooked on it like a bunch of people also did. Maybe a little too late. I really wish I would have played the game earlier in my life, so I would have gotten obsessed even earlier when I was little. Little kid me would probably love this game as much as, you know, I do now, and my obsession would have grown even harder. Yeah. When it comes to Doom, can't get enough of it. I will talk about this game more when I get to the Quake video, because I can't talk about Quake without talking about Doom. So if there's any more ideas that I have for rambling on about Doom, that will be in the Quake video. I'm not sure how I want to organize this series. I think I'm just going to do it based off just whatever I feel like playing, not really a chronological order, and maybe I'll organize it later to be in chronological order, based on, like, year of release or whatever. But I have a few games in mind that I want to ramble about and talk like I am with this video, such as Quake, Postal, Half-Life, Call of Duty, even. Yeah, I know that's not an old school shooter, but I have very fond memories of it, and I want to talk about it as well. A particular Call of Duty, not the entire series, that was influential to me. And I'll figure out more ones to talk about. I will probably do this about some of the sequels too. Like talk about Doom Eternal and Doom 2016. Oh wait, excuse me. But yeah. I will figure that out. I'll be honest, I made this video today of all days, just because I've been feeling really down lately, and I've been wanting to just do something to distract my mind away from all the shit that I've been going through mentally. And so I feel like just talking about something and playing something I like is a really good, productive thing to do. I know to some people playing video games is not productive at all. Doesn't seem like that at all to them. Truth is, I think playing a video game is a lot more productive than you might think compared to doing shit like doom scrolling or going on social media and just endlessly looking at like crappy AI videos that people post or political entries. So I am just doing this out of passion, and I'm doing this out of my need for distractions. This helps me, and it might help you. I don't know. This video ain't gonna go nowhere, and barely anybody's gonna watch it, and that's fine. If anything, yeah, I'll think about what else to do next. So for now, this is just me talking about Doom, and I'll get back to you with the other games to talk about as well. So yeah, I guess until the next video.